Hello and welcome to the first edition of Battleface Insights. I'll be your host, and my name is Clay Coomer. I'm the head of global marketing at Battleface, and this will be a new series where we will focus on different trends that we're seeing in the market to be able to provide our partners and industry experts with different insights as we're seeing it within our data. So for this first edition of Battleface Insights, we're going to be looking at the U.S. market specifically and consumer buying trends. The data you're about to see is 2024 year to date, so January till the end of July. And just to summarize a little bit, we're going to really be getting into, for this first segment, a series of specific consumer behaviors that we're seeing in the U.S. market around attachment rate and removal rate of specific benefits, because at Battleface in our U.S. market, we unbundle benefits to allow consumers to mix and match and customize their own plan. So from there, we're going to do a deep dive into some interesting, revelations we're seeing in the market around a trend and a particular benefit that has been pretty interesting to see. And then we're going to conclude with some traveler and trip insights around different demographics and just some data around what domestic versus international trips and average trip length, those types of things. So let's go ahead and dive in here into our first piece of insights. And what we're looking at here is single trip comprehensive travel protection plan. In the U.S., it is our unbundled plan, attachment and removal rate trends. So I've highlighted a couple different things here. First, with the trip cancellation benefit, there has been a bit of a decline in the attachment of trip cancellation. You can kind of see it starts to go down around March and proceeds to go down to its lowest point in June at about a 63% attachment rate. So some interesting takeaways here are that our theory is that this is a price sensitivity. I don't know if I'd say the word issue necessarily, but I would say it's certainly price sensitivity, because the trip cancellation benefit is the most expensive benefit to attach. So it can certainly change the price of a cart to a pretty significant degree. And the second one that we'll draw attention to is the travel medical benefit. So it's kind of done the opposite, right? It has been surging as of late and has been the number one most attached benefit. Peaked at about 80% attachment in the month of June. Was still the highest attached in July at 72%. But we will talk more about travel medical in the slides to come, because this is an interesting trend that has happened this year. And the third takeaway here is baggage, the baggage protection benefit. It has also risen in terms of its attachment. It was the most removed benefit, and it still is. It is still one of the most removed benefits from the cart. However, it has gone up. So the two most frequently removed benefits are baggage and trip delay. With the top three being the top three attached being travel medical and trip cancellation and trip interruption. So certainly some interesting trends that have been happening. I'd say again the two biggest to call out are the decline in trip cancellation benefit and the rise of travel medical, which is a great segue into our next bit of information, which is a more deep dive on this travel medical benefit and its attachment over the last several months, dating back to January of 2023. So when we look at the travel medical benefit comparing it to the first 7 months of 2023, we can see that it's risen 20%. It's gone from 56% average to a 68% attachment. So certainly seems to be consumer preference for that travel medical benefit, which again to me it is an interesting trend to continue to monitor. And the other piece of this is policies only attaching the travel medical benefit. So that means when you go in to customize your cart, consumers are only adding the travel medical benefit. So looking at last year, same time period, 8% of policies sold had that travel medical only. This year, the first 7 months, it's up to 14%, which is a 71% increase, which again, I would say suggests that travel medical certainly is on people's minds. And this is applicable to both international and domestic trips, as it turns out, which surprised me, because as we look at the travel medical benefit attachment to domestic trips only, it had a 12% attachment in the first 7 months of last year. Currently, for domestic trips, travel medical is being attached at a rate of 26%, which is a 115% year-over-year increase. So even for domestic trips, travel medical insurance added to the cart has been very popular to start this year. So that's something we're going to continue to monitor. Typically what we would do with these kind of insights is how can we make travel medical, I'd say, more available, more prominent as a preferred benefit, and how can we pass this information along to our partners to be able to leverage these insights for their purchase experiences as well for their consumers. So that's kind of our next steps in terms of how we can take action on these particular set of insights. So as we get into the last two slides here, so first is traveler and trip insights. So the first part 1 of 2, we're looking at international versus domestic, which if you look at the ratio, this is, I would say, pretty standard in the industry based off of my experience. 80% international trips, 19% domestic trips. This just really speaks to travel insurance being attached more frequently to international trips, which certainly makes sense. Higher cost trips, certainly want to have that protection when going abroad. You can see that there's a bit of a spike in the month of March in terms of domestic kind of peaking at 25%. I would equate that to spring break travel in the United States. But when we look at domestic trips in general as a percentage of total, it is up 10% compared to 2023. So again, something to monitor, I would say, but nothing super significant. I would say this is mostly pretty standard. And when we look at insureds per policy as well, the average year-to-date is coming in at 1.52 travelers per policy. And this is actually down 11% compared to last year during the same time. It is suggesting maybe a bit more solo trips that are taking place. You can see in the beginning of the year, there was certainly a higher ratio. I think, again, this tracks back to spring break travel with families taking those domestic trips with more than 2 travelers. So as we then now pivot to our last slide here, on the left-hand side, looking at average age of insured and the average length of trip. So at battleface, we tend to have a younger demographic of traveler. Year to date, our average age is about 36 years old. And from a trip length perspective, the average is about 14 days. So looking at that year over year, it's pretty flat. So it just suggests that there's really no discernible difference in terms of our buyer demographics. So that all really makes sense as it's specific to the battleface brand. And as we look at the graph on the right, what we're looking at here is e-commerce conversion rates. So if you're a marketer and you happen to be watching this, think of it as your e-commerce conversion rate, the number of users to your site divided by the number of policies sold. So that really gets you to that e-commerce based conversion rate. This is specific to the U.S. market, and what we're seeing is something I'd say pretty significant. The 12% e-commerce conversion rate is frankly the highest that I've really seen. Typically, when I view this metric, it's in the single digits, more times than not. Usually, I see 5 to 7%, but year to date we're sitting at a 12%, and this is up 66% year over year, which again is pretty significant. And I think that this really just underscores that value of unbundling the benefits to be able to customize and personalize at a very granular level. I would argue the most customized you can possibly get in this industry, and it really speaks to some of the conversations we've been having with various partners about seeing diminishing attachment rates, specifically in embedded type of purchase paths. So when you really think a little bit, I guess, more high level, if you're putting a bundled plan in an embedded type of experience, and you're starting to see diminishing attachment rates, there's a pretty good chance that it's likely product related. And if you lack product relevancy, that's and it's the same product, whether you're offering, whether it's an international trip, domestic trip, or older traveler, younger traveler, family traveler, what have you, you're probably going to have a lower attachment rate. So that's where battleface really comes in and says, hey, you know what? Let's really look at your demographics, and let's tailor a more specific type of policy based on that criteria that your customers are entering within that buying flow. And we're certainly placing our bets that's going to have a much higher attachment rate. I mean, we're seeing it ourselves with our unbundled type of experience. So certainly, I would say stands to reason that could be applicable to others who are seeking to, increase those attachment rates. So that is it. That is Battleface Insights edition number 1. Thank you for tuning in. You have been watching the U.S. market consumer buying trends year to date for 2024. I am Clay Coomer, the head of global marketing at Battleface. We will be continuing to share different insights over the next months. This is edition 1 of hopefully many that we will be looking to publish and promote on a monthly basis for the betterment of travel insurance, and also for partners looking to maybe change things up and how they offer travel insurance, and providing different insights that hopefully will be valuable to your business. So in the short term, in the long term. So again, I'm Clay Coomer. It's been great diving into this with you. We will see you again next time. Thank you so much.